Imagine you are playing a video game. You are in a tank or a plane and you are destroying everything in sight. You are racking up the highest score in history. You feel invincible. You feel like nothing can touch you. And then, right at the end of the level, you fire one last shot, and the bullet bounces off a wall and hits you. Game over. That sounds like bad fiction, right? A cruel joke. Well, in World War II, that exact scenario happened to the greatest submarine in the United States Navy. The USS Tang was a legend. In just 5 patrols, she sank 33 enemy ships. That's not a typo, 33. Her captain, Richard O'Kane, was the Michael Jordan of submarine warfare. He didn't just sink ships, he embarrassed them. He would surface right in the middle of a Japanese convoy, blasting away with deck guns and torpedoes like a cowboy in a saloon fight. The Japanese Navy was terrified of him. They thought he was a ghost fleet because they couldn't believe one single boat could do that much damage. But on the night of October 24th, 1944, the Tang's luck ran out in the most impossible, freakish way you can imagine. They fired their 24th and final torpedo of the patrol. It was supposed to be the victory lap. Instead, the torpedo malfunctioned. It turned left, it kept turning, and it started hunting the ship that fired it. This is the story of the submarine that was so deadly it eventually killed itself. But it's also a story of survival, of men trapped 180 feet underwater in the dark with no air, who had to make a choice: suffocate in the metal coffin or try a desperate, lung-bursting escape to the surface. Prepare to dive. Welcome to Valor and Heritage. To understand the Tang, you have to understand the man who built her, Richard "Dick" O'Kane. Now, in the early days of World War II, American submarine captains were cautious. They were taught by the book. The book said, stay deep, use sonar, fire from long range, stay hidden. The problem was, the book was wrong. While our captains were hiding deep underwater, the Japanese ships were sailing right past them. We weren't sinking enough tonnage. O'Kane was different. He had served as the executive officer, the second in command, on another legendary boat, the USS Wahoo, under Mush Morton. Morton taught O'Kane a new style of fighting. It was aggressive, it was reckless, and it was effective. When O'Kane got his own boat, the Tang, he threw the rulebook out the airlock. O'Kane's philosophy was simple. I can't see anything through a periscope. A periscope sticks up about 3 feet. It gives you a tiny view. So O'Kane decided to fight on the surface at night. This sounds suicidal. A submarine on the surface is just a slow, fragile boat. If a destroyer sees you, they can ram you or blow you out of the water with their big guns. But O'Kane realized something. The Tang was actually faster on the surface than most Japanese merchant ships, and the Japanese radar was terrible. So he would surface the Tang right in the middle of an enemy convoy. He would run alongside the enemy ships, sometimes only 500 yards away, and fire torpedoes down their throats. Imagine the guts that takes. You are in a tin can loaded with explosives. You are sailing parallel to a massive enemy freighter. You are so close you can smell the diesel smoke from their stacks. You can see the Japanese sailors smoking cigarettes on the deck, and they don't see you because you are low in the water and painted black. O'Kane would yell, "Fire 1, fire 2," and watch the torpedoes hit. Then, while the convoy was panicking and ships were exploding, he would weave the Tang through the burning wreckage, find the next target, and do it again. It was like a wolf getting into a sheep pen. By October 1944, the Tang was on her 5th war patrol. They were sent to the Formosa Strait and the Yellow Sea. This is the water between China and Japan. It was a vital shipping lane. Japan was starving for oil and food, and everything had to pass through this choke point. O'Kane arrived and found a target-rich environment. It was a buffet. On October 23rd, he spotted a massive convoy. 5 merchant ships, huge tankers, transports protected by destroyers. Most captains would pick off one straggler and run away. O'Kane decided to sink them all. He drove the Tang right into the middle of the formation. He fired bow tubes, he swung the boat around and fired stern tubes. In one night, he sank 3 ships. The Japanese destroyers were furious. They charged around, dropping depth charges, but O'Kane was already slipped away into the darkness. The crew was exhausted, torpedo men were reloading the tubes, sweating in the heat, slipping on hydraulic fluid. The air in the subs stank of diesel, sweat, and fear. But morale was through the roof. They knew they were making history. The next night, October 24th, it happened again. Another massive convoy. O'Kane surfaced. He saw transports loaded with planes and tanks down for the Philippines to fight General MacArthur. O'Kane got on the intercom. Battle station's Torpedo. This is it, boys. Let's send them to the bottom. The Tang unleashed hell. Torpedo after torpedo streaked out. Explosion after explosion rocked the night. The sky was lit up with burning gasoline. O'Kane was firing so fast that the Japanese ships started shooting at each other in the confusion. They thought they were being attacked by a whole wolf pack of submarines. They didn't know it was just one angry boat from America. By 2 a.m., the Tang was empty. Well, almost empty. They had fired 23 torpedoes. They had sunk or damaged 13 ships in just a few days. The ocean floor was littered with Japanese steel. They had one single torpedo left in the forward tubes. Just one. O'Kane looked through his binoculars. He saw a crippled transport ship floating dead in the water. It was damaged, but not sinking. He couldn't leave it floating. It might be repaired. He turned to his XO and said, "Let's finish the job. Fire the last one, and then let's go home to San Francisco for a cold beer." We are moments away from the most tragic accident in naval history. The Tang is about to fire its final shot. But before we launch, I need you to join the crew. If you want to dive deeper into history's greatest mysteries, flood that subscribe button. We are exploring the depths where no one else goes. Welcome aboard. Now, stand by to fire 24. The Torpedo, load in tube number 24, was a Mark 18 electric torpedo. These were new. They didn't leave a bubble trail like the old steam torpedoes, which made them harder to spot, but they were finicky. They had batteries that needed to be heated. At 2:30 a.m., O'Kane gave the order, "Fire." The submarine shuddered slightly as the heavy weapon was pushed out by compressed air. O'Kane and his lookout watched the phosphorescent wake streak away from the bow. But then, something horrifying happened. The wake didn't go straight. It curved to the left, sharp. At first, O'Kane thought it was a porpoise, a malfunction where the torpedo jumps out of the water, but it stayed under. It kept turning. O'Kane screamed, "All ahead emergency, right full rudder." He tried to turn the submarine inside the turning circle of the torpedo. He tried to outrun it, but a torpedo travels at 30 knots. A surfaced submarine can barely do 20. The physics were against them. The torpedo completed a full 180-degree turn. It was coming straight back at the Tang's stern. It took about 20 seconds. 20 seconds of watching your own death rushing toward you. Boom! The torpedo hit the aft torpedo room. The explosion broke the back of the submarine. O'Kane and the 8 men on the bridge were thrown into the water. The submarine sank by the stern instantly. O'Kane, floating in the water, watched his beloved boat slide backward into the abyss. He thought everyone inside was dead, but they weren't. Not yet. The submarine hit the bottom of the Formosa Strait. It landed in about 180 feet of water. Inside the forward compartments, about 30 men were still alive. They were trapped in the dark. The air was getting thin, and the Japanese destroyers above were starting to drop depth charges on the wreck. This is where the story turns into a nightmare survival horror. The survivors gathered in the forward torpedo room. They had one way out, the escape trunk. This is a small airlock. You climb in, flood it with water until the pressure equals the ocean outside, open the hatch, and float up. But 180 feet is deep. If you go up too fast, your lungs explode from the pressure change, the bends. They had a device called the Momsen Lung. It was a primitive rebreather, a rubber bag you strapped to your chest that scrubbed carbon dioxide. The men were panicking. The heat from a battery fire in the next compartment was making the torpedo room hot enough to melt rubber paint off the walls. The smoke was choking them. One by one, they climbed into the trunk. Some panicked and drowned in the trunk. Some made it out but held their breath on the way up and died of air embolisms. Only 13 men managed to leave the submarine. Of those 13, only 9 made it to the surface alive. 5 came from the trunk, and 3, including O'Kane, were survivors from the bridge. When they popped up on the surface, gasping for air, they weren't rescued by the Navy. They were picked up by a Japanese destroyer, the very enemy they had been killing all night. The Japanese sailors were furious. They beat the survivors. They burned them with cigarettes. They couldn't believe these 9 half-drowned men were the ghost fleet that had destroyed their convoy. O'Kane and his men spent the rest of the war in a secret interrogation camp called the Torture Farm, Ufuna. They were never registered as POWs. Their families thought they were dead, but they survived. When the war ended, O'Kane was released. He weighed about 90 pounds. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. The USS Tang remains on the bottom of the Formosa Strait. It is a war grave for 78 brave men, but her record still stands. In her short life, she sank 33 ships, totaling 116,454 tons. She was the most successful submarine of the war. The only thing that could stop the Tang was the Tang. Dick O'Kane passed away in 1994, but he left us with a lesson. In war, you can do everything right. You can be the best there is, and fate can still throw you a curveball. The only thing you can control is how you face it. If you think the Silent Service are the bravest guys in the Navy, leave a comment on Eternal Patrol. Next time on Valor and Heritage, we're going to the desert of North Africa. We're going to meet the most dangerous vehicle of World War II. Not a tank, but a jeep. And the British maniacs who drove them behind enemy lines to blow up German planes. Get ready for the SAS and the Rat Patrol. I'm Baylor. Dive, dive, dive.